And it's been just over a week since the U.S. strike in Iraq killed General Soleimani. Since then, many across the country have experienced the impact of his death right here and even in Kern County. 23 ABC's Leslie Gooden is live in studio with more.
Yes, good evening. Today I was able to speak to a Bakersfield native, Patrick Farr, whose son was killed by an EFP bomb, and says that the man responsible was General Soleimani. The father now for the last decade has been fighting for justice for his son's death and others.
It has been 14 years since Bakersfield native Patrick Farr lost his youngest son, Clay Farr, who was killed by an EFP bomb in Iraq. Now Clay's picture hangs in the Portrait of a Warrior gallery in downtown. Farr says this past week has been like no other after learning about the death of General Soleimani, who Farr says was responsible for his son's death and many other Americans.
The world's better off without General Soleimani. And these hand-wringers that are trying to define Soleimani as a different individual than he is, my view on that's just complete nonsense. They don't know what they're talking about. This man is nothing but Dr. Death, and I'm glad he's gone.
Farr shares that he has 5 pending lawsuits in Washington, D.C. suing Iran for money laundering and Soleimani's involvement in funding of the EFP bombs that took his 21-year-old son's life. Farr says Soleimani's death was a portion of justice for him, but not completely.
Last year, we were finally in court in Washington, D.C. With a lawsuit that involved Soleimani's actions towards these U.S. soldiers that were killed. We sued Iran, and we did prevail in that lawsuit. It's still ongoing in the final stages. That's just the first of many lawsuits.
Clay Farr is not the only serviceman on the wall in the Portrait of a Warrior gallery that lost their life to Soleimani, but also 32-year-old Brian Freeman.
Captain Brian Freeman, he was in a civil affairs unit, and there was a directive from General Soleimani to capture that civil affairs unit, and they were captured, tortured, and killed, and that's a direct tie.
Farr says he will continue to fight to honor his son by sharing his story, like having a feature with the New York Times, and he wants to remember his son as the prankster who loved people, but more importantly, loved his country.
Farr says that President Trump did what he believes was right and hopes that this is the beginning of the end of terrorism.